Quick greetings. Today or tonight, we are going to just reiterate what we always say, and we're going to show and prove the true standing of Indians in the Americas was always supposed to be as sovereign people, which means they walk freely on the land, they govern themselves, even with this United States here. The United States was never to dominate or hinder Indians in any way, shape, or form. So we want to start off with the Constitution as we have done before. So what I want to do is look at the first mention of Indians at Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. We skip to only the parts that refer to Indians because all the other stuff is either commerce or the United States using commerce to dominate Indians. They're going to try to use other parts of this document, I'm learning, besides the one that mentions Indians. They're going to say because they're regulating commerce, that basically commerce comes along and all the things that deal with commerce, they are applying to the sovereignty of Indians. But as we always say, since when does commerce change the political standing of any people? And the example we used before is when China engages with America or the United States in commerce, does China have to go by all the laws, rules, and regulations of the United States, or do they have a few of their own? Is it all about conceding to one sovereign when it comes to commerce? What kind of commerce are we talking about? Commerce is supposed to be a two-way street with two bosses, not one people bossing up on another people like we have with the way the Constitution is written and the way it's interpreted. Now, I say the way it's written because common sense dictates, again, when you're engaging in commerce with another foreign nation, where on earth do you dominate that people due to commerce? Where do you honor their sovereignty, or do you just bulldoze over their rights in the name of commerce? This is the dilemma. So we are looking at, as always, the 1787 Continental Constitution, which is the original Constitution. And we're going to go down again to where it applies to Indians. We might peek at the Commerce Clause, but as I said, commerce should not be changing what we see right there highlighted. Let's read it because it's convoluted and people may not get what it's saying. So we're going to read this and then we're going to read some interpretations of this by legal people who know the law, right? We're going to hear from senators, as we've done in a prior video, and that really the senators should be enough, right? But we're just going to look at two other documents, hopefully, if I can manage to not go off as I usually do. I have two versions of this subject that I have not posted. because I felt like I was sort of going too long, with my introduction. So, to avoid doing that, let's get right into this. We might still post those videos, but there'll be a version 1, version 2, and this is version 3, which should be expedited, a little more to the meat and bones. Okay, so let's read. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to the respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed. Now, the normal mind would not really make heads or tails of this, what we just read. Let's read it again. Representatives. Okay, so representatives in Congress and direct taxes shall be apportioned. And I think part of the disconnect is the word apportioned. Representatives and direct taxes shall be determined among the several states which may be included within this union by adding to the whole number of free persons those bound to service for a term of years, excluding Indians not taxed. So we try to break it down because this is, if we haven't noticed, clearly this is written in a way to be undecipherable to the naked eye, to the untrained eye, to the person that has not looked further to see what are legal professionals or legal students of law, uh, official or unofficial, laymen or actual students. What do they say about this clause? Because, okay, we're going to read it one last time as it is, because it doesn't sound like it's saying anything that anyone would understand. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to the respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to a service for a term of years, excluding Indians not taxed. So when you read that, you say, well, how do we know they're talking about the census? Because what we deduced when we read other material on this clause is that Indians are not supposed to be taxed. They're not counted in the census, and they're not represented in Congress. That means Indians don't have senators in Congress or House representatives in Congress. None of those people in Congress are supposed to be representing Indians because this government does not cater to Indians. It caters to citizens. But again, you'll look at this and say, well, it doesn't say anything about the census, right? The clue is they saying number. How are they going to get a number? They're going to have to count, right? And they're going to add. They're going to say, they said there's something about adding. So you're going to add to free persons those bound to service for a term of years. They're talking about indentures, y'all. And we want to stop for a minute because we want to say that's what an indentured servant is. It's someone bound to service for a term of years. What is the Constitution telling us, y'all? It's telling us that there were no slaves here. It was all indentures. And we read that when we looked at the Jim Crow Museum website. But we have several psyops going on. And so we're being told that America and the South were about just outright slavery. But the Constitution, it says something about bound to service. And you might have heard Dane Calloway say that this was all about, how did he put it? This was about work contracts. There were contracts for a service, for a term. The contract weren't to be permanent slavery, right? That's what the Constitution is actually telling us, that in the United States, there were indentures, and the indentures realized that they got a shitty deal. Okay. And what it was is Indians were being called slaves, but what's happening, from what I can tell, is that it's actually the Indians that lost the war were bound to service, is what I'm seeing. That's just me, because I'm trying to make sense of a lot of this, like many of us are. But we're going off course a little bit. What we're trying to show you is that without saying it in words, they're talking about enumerating. When they talk about, again, adding to a number, it's going to be free persons. So we're talking, this is the people that they're counting, free persons. And they're also counting indentures. And though that would be those who are bound to service for a term of years. But they won't be including Indians. So a number of Indians are not even going to be counted. But those that are in service, they are falling under the jurisdiction, apparently, of the United States, because they're being counted in the census, right? So could it be that they had some Indians that they were pulling jurisdiction over based on the fact that they were bound to service for a term of years? But even if that was the case, that the jurisdiction wouldn't last after the service and the number of years were served. You know, the after the contract or whatever, those people would not, if they're Indians, they wouldn't be bound to this anymore. If we go with the narrative here, because I know for sure that Indians are being counted as indentures. This we just have to know. It was Indians that were working as quote unquote slaves, but they were really indentures. So this is just one of those things, y'all, that they don't explicitly make it clear. Okay, so I think we understand now that they're talking about the United States counting its citizens, but their citizens are also going to have Indian indentures. So that's how, one way that the Indians are being pulled into this crap, because they're working under a contract. But when that contract is over, conceivably, they go back to being Indians not taxed, right? That would make sense, right? Because it's just a term of years, right? It's not for life. But as we read, with the first person of color that they made a slave for life was John Punch. And they said they did this because he tried to escape. So, wait a minute. He was working on a contract. Because he escaped, you can break the contract. Well, what they did with the Caucasians was they added more years to their term of service. But with the man of color, they actually made him a slave for life. See, this is the model that they're using for Indians, which is we have to call a thing, y'all. It's a form of genocide, and it's a genocide of the Indian and his standing on the land. They don't want Indians to be sovereigns because they're taking the land of the Indians. So this whole system is a crime scene. It is a crime scene. And unless the victims stand up and get real, I'm talking about American Indians, this system is going to find any way it can to make you permanently enslaved. Now let's read this one more time. Representatives. Representatives in what? Congress. And taxes, we're going to say, will be determined among the several states in this union. And it's going to be according to the numbers of men and women in that state that are called free persons. They're going to add to the free persons slaves or indentures. So the indentures are going to be counted because they are property. They are seen as property of the free persons. But Indians not taxed are not included that. So what American Indians have to do to begin to get out of this mess is look at this Constitution and show this government that you are an Indian, not taxed, which means you don't send me no census in the mail. You don't count me. No, and see, we want this to be in large numbers because that's the only way you can begin to have a system of some form of justice. I don't even want to call it a government because we're not looking to govern people's mental. We just need justice up in this place. Enough of trying to govern your mind, because when they do that, they tend to be lying when it comes to these government officials. Now, we are peaceful Indians. We don't advocate violence against anyone, let alone public officials. So this is not about taking the government by force or uh, even what they did on January 6th. That's none of that are Indians even thinking about. Why? We have a legal standing, yo. We have a lawful standing. We're Indians, not taxed. And from there, that is our diving board to begin to build our own system. We will require land, and we should be getting compensated for the land that the United States is using and calling its own. Because the only way the United States got that land is through the doctrine of discovery, which, as we always say, that has been repudiated. It is no longer in effect. Once the church wrote those words of repudiation, it changed the entire game board. No longer can this system rely on the doctrine of discovery behind the scenes, because that's what they've been doing. As we said in an earlier video, none of their laws really applied to Indians, but they were using the doctrine of discovery. We see that with the three foundational cases in what they call federal Indian law. And we always have to say the attorney, Peter DeRico, calls federal Indian law federal anti-Indian law. because this attorney looked behind the curtain and saw the shady, shifty, slimy, grimy Wizard of Oz. So we know that in the three foundational cases, Judge John Marshall, we talk about him a lot. They called his three cases the John Marshall trilogy, and in these three cases, the Cherokee Nation lost. They did not win these cases. All they got was a big, nice mouthful of domination by the federal government. The Cherokee Nation lost land to Georgia in one of the cases, and the federal government said, "Oh, we'll just give you land somewhere else." So they were basically, pushed off their land because Georgia wanted that land. In another case, the Cherokee Nation tried to sell land to someone, and the federal government basically said, "No, you don't get to sell even the land on your reservation." Now, technically, the land on their reservation is supposed to be theirs. You took the rest of my land, everything around me, you took. The reservation is not mine either. So I'm like a resident. I thought I was an Indian, but you treat me like I'm a damn resident or a citizen. So in one of the cases, the Cherokee Nation found out that they can't sell land. Only the government can determine what land on a reservation can be sold or if it shall be sold. So once again, another another federally recognized tribe we should specify, because this is how it gets when you're federally recognized. Can you imagine? You think it would be a good thing to be federally recognized. It is not, because you're federally dominated. And furthermore, this constitution that we're looking at doesn't say anything about federally recognized tribes. In our last video, we said this is our recognition right there that you're looking at. And it says Indians are not taxed. Does the government not recognize that? So they created a new type of federal recognition, one they made up, where they get to pick and choose who can be Indian. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? That's like having a government in China that they get to pick and choose who can be Chinese. The government is telling you who you are. And God forbid they be liars like we have here that put out propaganda to try to convince you that you're from Africa. Can you imagine this going on in another country? And we're talking about an alleged free country here, right? What kind of shenanigans are these going on in a free quote unquote country? It's not free, y'all, because the freedom comes at the cost of genociding Indians. So again, Indians have to take a stand because decisions are being made for them under the guise that this government system has the right to just determine who's Indians, number one, and then those Indians will have to be federally recognized, number two. And then after that, it's off to the domination games. So what we're saying, we know we may not look at the Commerce Clause too much, but this is the first mention of Indians, and it's fitting that it would be setting the stage to say that Indians are generally sovereigns who are not counted by the census, who are not represented in Congress. Let's highlight representatives. And we don't have to do taxes because it says Indians not taxed. But the keywords representatives, number of free persons, indentures, excluding Indians. Okay, so we want to confirm, does this really mean what we are saying it means? And for that, what we will do is look at another document. The next one we have is here. Actually, I'm going to skip that. Let's go here. It's a little bit more succinct. So this is from the Constitutional Rights Foundation. They have since changed their name, but basically, obviously, this is a foundation that deals with the Constitution. So they must know something about the Constitution to publish a newsletter on American Indian sovereignty, right? So look up Constitutional Rights Foundation right here. And you can do your own research to find out how legitimate are they in terms of being a voice to talk about the Constitution. I believe just reading that, it's clear that they have knowledge of what the Constitution means, right? So this is from winter of 2021. It's interesting that it's post-COVID, right? Volume 36, number 2, over here. Again, winter 2021 is over here. The title of this newsletter, they put out regular newsletters, but like I said, they have changed their name. I forget what they call themselves now, but they still exist, right? So what do they have to say about the article that we just read? That when we read it in the Constitution, it's like trying to scramble our brain, right? And we don't know, what did they just say? What is it? Why couldn't they say it just more like in plain English? This is another reason why I truly don't believe that we designed that Constitution. It just sounds European. The choice of words, it sounds like a foreigner trying to mince up words so that you don't understand them. And most Indians never did, apparently. We are actually hearing from folks like this foundation that are telling us. But who in your family ever told you about the Constitution? That's an Indian. So this is why my ongoing argument is Indians certainly did not build this government. I'm sorry, y'all. This came here through conquest. When you're under conquest, you don't build a government. I think Indians don't quite get that. So they're ducking and dodging historical facts to say that Indians built this system. The system only appeared after colonization. We didn't have the right to build anything because we were seen as heathen, right? But anyway, back to the topic at hand. What does this foundation have to say about the article we just read? And they say it they make it plain. So for that, we're going to blow up. You saw this already. I've shown this before. But now we're just trying to be a little more, have a better flow. Okay. So let's read what they said about the article we just read. Okay. Let's make it as big as possible, too. Let's do this. Let's do this the right way. Okay. Okay. The founding fathers said little in the Constitution about the American Indian people, aka nations or tribes that lived around them. We were all over, right? We surrounded these knuckleheads, right? That's why they had to call us black. But anyway, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Now they're going to reiterate the article. Let's listen to how they say it. Representatives in the House of Representatives, that's Congress, y'all, was based on counting all free persons, 3/5 of indentures, because the use of slaves is very loose, right? 3/5 of the indentures, because they were only working for a term of years, y'all. They weren't permanent. Now, this is where this article kind of messed up. But excluding Indians not taxed. And they go a little further to tell us, thus, American Indians were not considered citizens of the United States. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that the United States don't have jurisdiction over Indians. They can't tell us what to do. They can't arrest us. They can't fine us. They can't charge us with crimes. They don't have the jurisdiction. We are actually already free. But they have muddied up the waters like Moors do. This was built by Moors. Just get over it. Clearly, we haven't had a clue about what how this system operates. And we now that we do have a clue, we have Moors telling us, "Oh, you did this though." That's who's telling us this. If we're very honest with ourselves, because we're only now getting a clue. We're only now getting a clue in the awakening. But liars have come right at the time of the awakening to try to steer this narrative. We had an influx of YouTube Indians, right? All of a sudden, right? Yet no one hardly said it as plain as what we're looking at on the screen, right? Look at that. This is what's telling us the legality of how we became Negroes, blacks, and coloreds, right? It's roughly telling us, because we don't know that we're Indians, right? We didn't know for a long time, right? But again, we hardly have any Indians online focusing in on the meaning of this to tell us that we're not under the jurisdiction of the United States. We're supposed to be foreign, like a foreign country to the United States. But you won't find many Indians talking like this. Why? First of all, if they know they're Indians, they are probably civilized. So civilized Indians, they are working with the United States to steer the narrative for uncivilized Indians. America is full of uncivilized Indians who think they're from Africa. But there's a select few of civilized Indians who know that we're not. Their job is to now convince us to stay in the corporation. They know they can't convince us to be African anymore because of the awakening. So now the next level is, if we can't get them to be African anymore, then we must steer them to stay under the jurisdiction of the United States and be in breach of the Constitution. So these civilized Indians don't want to go by what we're looking at right on the screen right now. If you will please read it with me. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Representation in the House of Representatives was based on counting in a census all free persons, 3/5 of indentures. I'm sorry, I'm using the real language, but excluding Indians not taxed. Thus, American Indians were not considered citizens of the United States. The United States has been hunting us down ever since it got here. It was more concerned with us than it was with citizens because it had to do something with our extraordinary numbers. They had to start calling us black, y'all. And they needed some civilized, quote unquote, Indians to help them do that. I don't know how much money they got paid. I don't know what gifts were given. I don't know what under the table promises were given. I don't know what college tuitions were paid. I don't know what uh, applications were pushed through for high positions. I don't know. But I know they got something and they are getting something. Now, we don't advocate violence against other Indians, do we? We certainly do not. We certainly do not. So, those civilized Indians that have gone underground like Judge Brown, we don't say first names if we can avoid it. We don't want no smoke, right? We got too much more important things to discuss to be putting out silly little fires, right? Right. Let us read this again, please, because I'm just convinced that even when reading it, people don't believe what they're reading. That's how that's how deep brainwashing goes. That's how serious mental programming is. But we have what do they call themselves again? The Constitutional Rights Foundation is telling us a little bit about sovereignty in their newsletter, right? Forget about that picture, y'all. Those are Native Americans, not American Indians. The Constitutional Rights Foundation, wait, did I get that right? Yes, rights. Oh, so they're telling us about our rights, y'all. The Constitutional Rights Foundation. Man, I almost want to write them. They would know what I'm talking about. All I have to do is show them that Walter Plecker uh, article that we might take a look at. Since they're going to, the first thing when they see me, they're going to say, oh, but you're from Africa. Yeah, that's what we've all been told. So this applies more to Indians who were misclassified, right? Because we are not even given the option to be Indians. Now, the ones that they're talking about, they never got misclassified. That's how we know who the real Indians are. Real Indians have to be genocide, paper genocide. So any Indians we see now, it's something that uh, the United States government corporation they cooked up because the real Indians they figured, well, we got rid of them with smallpox. They're gone. Okay, so where did the Native Americans come from? If all the Indians were killed by smallpox, by sugar pops, super sugar crisp, Captain Crunch. Uh, so okay, if all the Indians, what they're trying to say is all the Negro Indians died. Uh, but that's because we were paper genocide. For sure. Not a good side. Okay. So we have looked at, we're going to read one more time before we leave the screen and go to the next one, because the next one is a little more involved. But I believe that's the one where we have senators expressing sentiments as we see on this page right now. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. This is the Constitution we just looked at. Someone is restating it. Someone from the Constitutional Rights Foundation is breaking it down for us to make it a little more easy to understand. And they're saying representation in the House of Representatives, that's Congress, y'all, senators and the folks in the House of Representatives, right? Like they said, the House of Representatives is made up of senators and Congress people, right? So Indians don't have representation there. That means all them laws they be making don't apply to us. Representation in the House of Representatives was based on counting in a census all free persons, 3/5 of slaves. They're saying slaves, but we say they're indentures, but excluding Indians not taxed. Thus, this is the part we want to focus on. Thus, American Indians were not considered citizens of the United States. Now, there are some YouTube platforms of so-called Indians, right? And they're saying that we are supposed to be citizens. And some of these Indians are saying they would never give up their citizenship. They don't care about the Constitution, right? Obviously, I mean, we're reading an interpretation of Article 1 right up here, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, right? So Article 1 in the Constitution is saying that we were not citizens. So if we want to be citizens, that means we don't want to go by the Constitution, right? And then another segment of Indians are saying we built this system. Okay, so then why aren't we going by the Constitution? You see all the problems you get when you take the role of your colonizer because he's telling you you did something. So let's review this. We have a segment of Indians saying, no, this is our government, and the white man took it over. And then you have another segment and you're saying, I would never give my citizenship. Are you kidding me? I would never. Do you? It's just, the thing is, don't try to influence me and don't look at me like I'm crazy because I'm saying, oh, hell to the no, no, no. You see, a lot of Indians might think you picking on them or whatever, or something like that. No, I'm just really not happy with you telling me that this is what it was supposed to be. When, again, we're reading Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution, right? But I guess should those Indians be upset that we're interpreting the Constitution correctly according to the Constitutional Rights Foundation? So who should they be mad at? The Constitution that they wrote? They say they built this system? Or some Indian saying that that's some bullshit? It's not personal, it's just bullshit. Why would Indians think that they're supposed to be citizens if they designed this system? Can somebody please answer that question? And don't come at me with your slimy griminess. I'm going to see right through it. Answer it correctly. Now, the question is, if Indians are saying that they designed and built this system, then why aren't they going by the Constitution? Can somebody answer that question? They decided they don't like what they built. Okay. And if we have people that study the law who are not Indians but know our system better than we do, allegedly our system, And they study the law enough to know, what is this again? The Constitutional Rights Foundation? Call them up, ask them, are y'all full of shit, or are we full of shit? Challenge them. Say, why did you say that Indians were not considered citizens of the United States? Don't get mad at me. Ask them, because this is what we're reading from them. And so, since Indians don't know the Constitution, we got to go to people who do, right? Right. We don't know why Indians forgot the system they built and designed, and this is our system, but just white people took it over. That is a very sorry excuse, y'all. It's getting tired. It doesn't reach the tie it part. Tie it. This is uh sick and tie it excuse. If the white man knows the system better than the people who designed it, allegedly, then he deserves to take it over. Don't blame him. Blame the fact that we designed a system, allegedly, and now one of us know how this system works. Whose fault is that? If the white man understands how this shit works, more power to him. You can't get mad at him because you don't know how your system works. Y'all gonna have to realize, once I knew that the king, King, that brought the first state here was a black European, that's all I needed to hear, y'all. I know hierarchy. And then people will say, well, that was our king, or something to that effect, right? We was the British. Y'all gotta stop listening to Moors. That's what you gotta do. Again, if they can blame all the shit they did on you, they get to go scot-free, and you will be, in some way, shape, or form, paying for your failures, your lies, because somewhere lies were inserted. If you're saying that we're the British, it still means there's lies told. Who told them? You? Are you going to take the blame for that too? Since you're taking the blame for everything else that Morris did, so they get to go scot-free. They say that's what Scot means. That's where the term scot-free came from. Scottish. Shit, you can't make this shit up, y'all. Okay. So the Constitution says that we're not supposed to be citizens. And I guess the messenger is the bad guy. Um, okay, so this is from the Constitutional Rights Foundation. Yet some stubborn Indians might say, well, that's not good enough. I don't know those constitutions. How we know what they the real Constitutional Rights Foundation? Okay, would you listen to senators if they said it? Smarty. Would you listen to senators telling you that you're not supposed to be citizens? Would you? Are you just so stuck on being a citizen? Oh my God, what did being a citizen ever do for you but make you black? What? Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Is it time to go into storytelling time before we look at the next slide? Okay, storytelling time. From a child, y'all, when I saw two people fight on a school playground, and I knew that they were not friends, But after they fought, uh, then the one that got beat up became friends with the one that beat him up. Life is so funny because from a child again, from a child, I always knew, I just felt it. You beat me up, we're not friends. Okay. That's just the way I see it. I don't know, maybe I'm different, but in my mind, it's like, oh, you're friends. You're friends. It's a fear-based friendship or something because you got your ass kicked. That means you got to be that person's friend so they what protect you. Oh, okay. I mean, that aspect I could understand, but you know what? I from a child, I don't need your protection. I'll take my chances. The fact that you want even had a desire to harm me is that's all I need to know. I no further discussion. We're not doing this dance. You harm me, I remember, I go one way and I stay going another way. I'm not here to be your friend, especially after a fight. And that's just how I always felt from, I don't know where it came from. It's me. It's how I felt. When I see Indians caving to a system of domination and oppression, it brings that up somewhere. And as just like I was when I was a little boy, I'm not here for it. Just because you can beat me up, it's not enough to win my friendship, my loyalty, my anything. We are enemies until either you show some kind of, I don't know, you're going to respect me, I guess. That's what it is. That's because I'm going to have to respect you, but you're going to have to respect me. And it's not going to be based on the fact that you kicked my ass. That's just, no. Mm-mm. Um, this is why I am the way I am now as a grown up in India, American Indian. Just because the government comes off as the big bully, it's not enough to keep me from standing up for what I know. Okay? It's not enough that you're the big bad wolf. You're going to have to respect me in order for me to respect you. That's just, that's how I will. That's just me. And you know what? I'm glad I'm that way. I'm just going to say it that way. Obviously, it's part of the makeup I needed when dealing with this kind of bullshit. Okay. And I have heard from Indians that have said, "Oh, but the United States has an army." Yeah, mm. But they're gonna send a whole army. Yeah, well, they're gonna have to because once I know what I know to be right, I'm gonna stand on that. I'm gonna stand on it. I'm not gonna allow a bully situation to dominate my damn life. It's just not gonna happen. And you know what? The ancestors have a lot to do with that. I'm not gonna even say that it's, just me being grandiose. I believe it's in my blood. I believe the ancestors are with me, and I believe the ancestors are guiding me. Why? Because they know I don't listen to crowds like that. So they're going to have to. They're going to have to. And they know they can because they know I'm going to listen. They know I'm going to hear them. They know I'm not going to just follow everybody. And I think that's why they can parlay what they have in as much as they chose to. And I am more than appreciative. If this is bragging on the ancestors, that's a good thing. It's better than bragging on me. Um, yeah, because a lot of times the one who is bullied will become a bully. Now, I'm not saying I was, let's put it you this way. I wasn't the kid that got beat up all the time, but I watched how children operated, and I just steered clear of it all. I did have someone who wanted to fight me, but it never happened. It just never happened. And then years later, the person saw me on the street and was like going out of their way to say hi. And here's the thing, we never did get into a fight actually, but they threatened to. And as a kid, yeah, I was scared. I ain't gonna lie. Because this dude was kind of a heavy dude. He was bigger than me. Uh, and he just had it in for me at that time. And then ran into him in this neighborhood actually. And I did speak, because it wasn't going to be me who was speaking first. That's just how I do. I didn't like you back then. You threatened me. We didn't get into a fight, but you surely did threaten me. I'm not going to be saying hi. I'm not, I'll maybe our eyes will meet, but that don't mean I'm gonna, but it was the other person that said hi, and at that point I realized, okay, I guess we could be good. I mean, I'm not checking for you, but you somehow and I was okay with that. But again, there was no fighting that occurred. It was just a threat of one. So I knew I don't count him as a friend. Anyway, so back to what we're looking at. So we don't believe that was the little commercial for station identification. Now we go back to our regular programming as scheduled. You don't think the Constitutional Rights Foundation is an authority on the Constitution when they say what they just said here? That's some bullshit. We supposed to be citizens, right? We supposed to be getting taxed, and but what we'll take is tax exemptions. Well, that's not what the Constitution said. It says you're just not taxed point blank. Period. So this is when I start to say to myself, it must be that these are compromised Indians. They are doing the bidding of the United States government, and they have to be. Listen, if we don't know by now that this corporation uses money to get people to cave into, let's just say, the unjust uh, things that they will settle for. That's how colonizer gets many to compromise their own morals with just the writing of a check. And that's going to be the test of the true American Indian, because now you, again, as I said before, now you're selling your birthright, and you think you damned and condemned now from the corporation. If you've been made aware that you are an Indian being treated unjustly, and you say, go on and kick my ass. Just pay me, and I'll be good. You could kick my ass just as long as I get a good check and whatever. Go on, keep doing it. So that's when you become complicit and you're just like colonizer. That's what happens. That's how the Moors operate. I'm telling you, you are going to be blamed for what they do, everything. In fact, they will be vindicated because they have a sacrificial system. Their religion is sacrifice based. So, what they're doing is getting American Indians to be sacrificed to their God, who is a bloodthirsty God. Yeah, you're gonna have to be a spiritual adult when you hear Heru talking. I just have to say it like I feel it. If you a spiritual baby and you're gonna get mad, mm, I have to say it that way. That's how I feel it. That's how I have to call it. I'm over everything that colonizer has to offer. What I would like is what belongs to me. I don't want any of your shenanigans because all it does is show me how valuable what I have is. Um, but more than that, it's the principle. It's just the principle. I don't know who likes being done dirty. I don't know who likes that, even for money. It gets tired. It gets tired. But if you settle for that, it becomes a mark on your soul that you can't really erase. It will be reflected that how you got there was compromising yourself, and so you're compromisable. I just don't like someone feeling like they got over on me, but more than that, them feeling like I'm co-signing with them getting over on me. This is crazy, y'all. It would never fly in a hood rat situation, let alone high civil order or high civilization. In the hood, it wouldn't fly, and a lot of us, are hood rat base or whatever. So it's like if you would demand a level of respect in the hood, why would you not want it from institutions that are double dealing, low double dealing two-timing son of a guns? You know. Okay, we are not getting to the second thing here, the third thing I think it is. So the Constitutional Rights Foundation is not enough for you. Let's see what the senators have to say. Let's read this one last time. Let's read the last part. Thus, American Indians were not considered citizens of the United States. That means the United States doesn't have jurisdiction. Uh, just an aside, they are using the doctrine of discovery and the Commerce Clause to get the jurisdiction that they think they have until Indians say enough is enough. If you let them, they're going to continue. As the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated, that was the that was the groundbreaker foundation of this entire construct. American Indians were not considered citizens of the United States. You don't believe that? Let's hear it from senators. So we have to, oops, that's not it. Okay. That's right. We skipped something. Okay. Sorry. That's the other piece of evidence. But that one, we're going to look at some other part to that. But anyway, American Indian Culture and Research Journal records a debate that took place about the 14th Amendment as related to tribal Indians. Okay. Section 1, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and Section 2 of the 14th Amendment, excluding Indians not taxed. So that's your citation, the American Indian Culture and Research Journal, volume 28, issue 4 from 2004, on page 37, going all the way to 68. So we're going to jump down here because this gets a little bit of, you know, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get into all of that. This is what this is what we need to know. This is a congressional debate on the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Congress first granted full citizenship to former slaves with the Civil Rights Act of 1866. The act, I'm sorry, the act, okay. The act also excluded tribal Indians. Now, here they're making a mistake. I'm going to tell you right now. Indians not taxed is not tribal Indians, but we talked about that. We're not going to get caught in that right now. So let's look here. I'm sorry, we got to do it now one more time. They're saying excluding Indians not taxed, right? So the 14th Amendment is talking about exclusion of Indians not taxed. So then where do you see tribe Indians? They're not talking about tribe Indians. Okay, we're not going to get stuck on that. Okay, we're not going to get stuck on that. This is a congressional debate, and it's during the debate, excluding Indians not taxed was defined to mean tribal Indian. They shouldn't have done that. Foreigners, those who are not part of our people, and people excluded from U.S. citizenship and enumeration, thus all of whom were not taxable according to the ideology of 1866. Okay, but really it's according to the Constitution of 1787. Okay, the act was passed by Congress and vetoed by President Andrew Johnson. Congress overrode the veto. General understanding concluded that the 1787 Constitution excludes slaves, Indians, and other non-whites from citizenship. Okay, so there we have it again. I didn't even intend to read this, but let's read that again. Let's highlight it. And I'm not going to get too lost. Okay, the act was passed by Congress and vetoed by President Andrew Johnson. Congress overrode the veto. General understanding concluded that the 1787 Constitution excludes slaves, Indians, and other non-whites from citizenship. Y'all, we're going to leave it there because I tend to get too lost. And then I go off the topic of what I wanted to, and I already did just by reading that, but this goes along with what we're saying. So here we have an official journal, American Indian Culture and Research Journal. They know a little bit of something about Indian law because they're studying Indian culture, right? So this particular article is talking about the 14th Amendment, right? So here is another set of proof that Indians should not be considered citizens, right? So when you hear Indians saying that they're going to stay citizens, again, are they going with the Constitution? No, right? Okay, so then why are you calling yourself a legitimate Indian when you're not going by what the Constitution said about Indians. You're not an Indian. You must be a civilized tribe, uh, uh, expatriate or something, rebranding yourself or something. Because you're not going by the Constitution. Let's read this again. The act was passed by Congress and vetoed by President Andrew Johnson. Congress overrode the veto. General understanding concluded that the 1787 Constitution, we just looked at that, y'all. That's why we like to go to the 1787, right? Okay, so the 1787 Constitution excludes slaves. Now, yes and no, because the indentures were going to be counted, right? And I guess once they finished their contract, their indenture, then they would go back, if they were Indians, to being Indians not taxed. I guess if the indenture was a citizen, it would be different. But as general understanding concluded that the 1787 Constitution excluded slaves, Indians, and other non-whites. Citizenship was for white people, y'all. Citizenship was for white people. So Indians and other non-whites were excluded from citizenship. Now, is this Heru talking out of his ass, or is this Heru reading from the American Indian Culture Research Journal, where they're talking about a congressional debate? Okay, so when you hear me say that we're not supposed to be citizens, is this me making something up? Right? No, it's not. It's just mental programming that has you thinking that the government told us that everybody's supposed to be a citizen. They lied to you. They're misinterpreting the Constitution. They're relying on the doctrine of discovery and some commerce clause. And it's a real desperate move. It's a really thirsty move. And all they're doing is collecting more revenue than they would if they didn't count Indians. They just found a way to count Indians, y'all, by calling us black, okay? And making us like we're permanent slaves or something. Like we came here like slaves, okay? So now we're going to jump here. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was first debated in the Senate on the 30th of January, 1866. So this is a debate taking place in Senate, right? So these are senators, right? Within moments of the bill's consideration, Senator Van Winkle addressed the bill's constitutionality. Following Senator Van Winkle's remarks, the Senate immediately began a debate that lasted 3 days on the status of Indians under the Act. So we read that to establish that these are senators having a debate. Now we're going to jump to the senators that are just making it plain. We're not going to go to the ones who are more arguing and not sure or whatever, or they, they're not clear. So let's jump to all of the sections that I think are more to the point. Okay. Now, we read everything that we read. So it's still not me making something up, even though we're jumping around, right? We just read what? General understanding in Congress concluded that the 1787 Constitution excludes slaves, Indians, and other non-whites from citizenship. So this is the general understanding. But they had their debate. So Mr. Trumbull, throughout this debate, seems to be the one that speaks more adamantly. So let's read what Mr. Trumbull says, and we have a few others. Our dealings with the Indians are with them as foreigners, as separate nations. We deal with them by treaty and not by law. I should have no objection to changing it so as to exclude the Indians. It is not intended to include them. So he's saying that he wanted the 14th Amendment to exclude Indians. Okay. So that's Mr. Trumbull. He's one of the stronger voices. And actuality, it is his version of the 14th Amendment that excludes Indians that got put with the 14th Amendment. So he did win his argument in the end. Okay. So let's go down. Again, we're just going to some of the statements made. Don't get freaked out because we're skipping a lot. We see what's going on here, right? They're debating, right? So we want to focus on the ones that uh we're talking and making it plain. So Senator Trumbull ultimately suggested the phrase excluding Indians not taxed from Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, which did become the wording. So Trumbull won, right, in the act. So this did become part of the wording in the act, and within weeks was incorporated into Section 2 of the 14th Amendment. Okay. But the mention of it was meant to exclude Indians. But I do think there was some underhanded intentions as well. I think that they actually wanted to mention Indians because they wanted to confuse the issue. That's what I honestly believe, because Indians did not have to be mentioned with this amendment. They they really actually did not have to be mentioned with this amendment, but they were put there. I think it casts a shadow of doubt as to why they are included in a 14th Amendment that's trying to create rights when Indians were sovereigns. You don't make rights for sovereigns point blank, period. If they were indentures, you still don't make laws for them because they won't apply after the indenture is over. After they stop their service, they would go back to being what they were. So that's why I'm saying the 14th Amendment should not have mentioned Indians point blank, period, if you ask me, because Indians already had a standing in the Constitution as they were not citizens. What did we just read? Let's read it again. General understanding concluded that the 1787 Constitution excludes Indians, slaves and Indians and other non-whites from citizenship. Now, when they say slaves, they're not thinking of Indians. But me knowing better, I know that Indians were indentures now. We read that it was the 5 civilized tribes that had quote unquote slaves, but they were indentures. So what was that? I concluded, this is my take on it. My conclusion is that the Indians that lost the war became indentures to the Indians that won the war, or the Indians that were on the side of the United States. So they basically got us to turn on each other. Well, that's how they would do it. You have to have a fight going on so that you can step in all the chaos and play both sides, really. Because I really don't see what the civilized tribes got. Oh, wait a minute. I do see what they got. It's a lot of shenanigans going on, y'all. What happened? And we talked about it in the last few videos, so I'm just going to repeat it. The real civilized tribes became Black by choice. So that's what they do. And so that's how they steer the narrative of the uncivilized Indians. They constantly tell us that we're Black, but they are former Indians who have, they're really following whatever the United States corporation wants them to do. They do it because they get paid in some way, shape, fashion, or form they like having the United States here because the United States gives them whatever provisions they need to live a cushy life, right? So their mission in life is to steer Indians away from being Indians. But if that fails, they just steer Indians into staying under the jurisdiction of the United States that they're not supposed to be under. Okay. So we read one of Mr. Trumbull's comments. Now we're going to read his other one. Um, the Constitution in Section 2 of Article 1 excluded them, meaning Indians, from the enumeration of the population of the United States when it says Indians not taxed are to be excluded. Okay, very simple. Here's another one. In my own opinion, or my own opinion, is that all persons born in the United States and under its authority owing allegiance to the United States are citizens without any act of Congress. The Indians have separate governments of their own. They do not recognize, nor are they made subject to the laws of the United States. They make and administer their own laws. That is also key because that's the other part of being sovereign. You make your laws. But when Indian makes laws, it's going to become law of the land. But that's a very important part of this, that we make our laws for and we have to tell this corporation that we have laws they have to go by. I mean, top of the list is that you won't be you're going to stop calling us black. That's one of the top things that our laws would say. See, that's where it's going to get really crazy because we have the civilized Indians that have gone underground, like Judge Brown, that's their mission again, is to keep us black. So they it's going to be very hard they're going to cross their fingers when Indians make a law that says that we're not to be called black anymore ever in this country. They're going to be crossing their fingers in the back. But again, when calling us black fails, now it's about convincing us that the government is supposed to dominate us. That's the mission of the civilized tribes that went underground. Now, the Native Americans, they're just a placekeeper for the Indians that went underground, because everybody's gonna be like, well, is there any did the government do right by any Indians in America? See, they gotta make it look good, y'all. So they can, yeah, see these lovely Native Americans over here. Smile, Native Americans, smile. Say cheese with corn on top. Cheese with corn on top. Click. See, look how happy they look. So that's the Native Americans are the placekeeper to make it look like, oh, we still look, we have a nice reservation for them. They just better never find no gold down in that reservation, and we snatch it up quicker than you could say Jimmy crack corn. You snatch that shit up so fast. Well, you could say, Hambo, where you been? Off this reservation and stay the hell off again. Oh, that's what you do. Mm-hmm. Native Americans, man, they are really in the worst position of all. All they can do is say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Okay. They don't have any rights, yo. They don't have any rights. Don't worry about them. Just pray for them. Pray for them to go home and find joy and true connection to their ancestors. You know, their ancestors got to be rolling over their grave in their graves in Mongolia. Do you know how disturbed those graves must be? like our children went to America and left us here. They no love us. They no love us no more. Lying on your grandma. Lying on your grandpa for a check. They ain't even worth nothing. They ain't, I don't think they get a whole lot of money on their reservations, y'all. I don't know, but it's just gonna be it's gonna be interesting, y'all. It's gonna be interesting. Whew, I'm glad we invented popcorn because we sure gonna have to start eating popcorn and watch this thing go down. Mm-hmm. Start eating your popcorn, Indians. Oh boy, this is just—it's funny, but it's just you can't believe you when you realize you're in a Pinky and the Brain situation. It's like, oh shit, Pinky and the Brain is real. Oh boy. Anyway, okay, so Mr. Trumbull is on the ball, y'all. He's okay. So you don't believe that Indians are not supposed to be citizens, and more importantly, that they we supposed to make our own laws. Do you understand how powerful we're supposed to be as compared to how powerless we are right now? And to do this, y'all, we have to have land of our own, not something that the United States is holding in a trust. We don't need you to hold nothing in a trust because we don't trust you. At least the ones that have common sense don't. We don't advocate violence. We're peaceful, constitutional Indians. Okay, we are peace. Let the record reflect. We are reading the Constitution as these senators said it was supposed to be read. Now, Mr. Trumbull done said Indians have separate governments. Mr. Trumbull is a senator, y'all. Senator. Senator. He's not even an attorney. Well, he probably was. We ain't gonna go there, but he's a senator. Senator. He knows something about what Congress seems to have forgotten. Although he's in Congress, he seems to remember. But see, this is back in 1866. Like Congress is like, we don't know nothing about them people back then. These are a whole new Congress. We put the con in Congress, y'all. We was here to put the con in Congress. I'm sorry, y'all. You did it to yourselves. Don't get mad. You just look. Nobody trust. Nobody wants injustice to last forever. Okay. Nobody wants that because you could bring it upon yourself. You seeking to bring injustice on to other people, they're going to come a time when your injustice is going to feel endless like it felt for American Indians. And it's nothing that the American Indians really did because they didn't even know they were American Indians, right? They just been struggling under this being a freaking cast as a freaking slave from Africa, wondering like, if you hate me so much, why did you bring me here? My God. It's like the hate, what appears to be hate is really, they don't want no Indians here. But that's why it doesn't make sense. It's like, if you don't want a people in quote unquote your country, well, it's not your country, but the idea is don't bring them. Okay. You seem to love Spanish. Why didn't you just go grab some Spanish? You know, don't go to Africa. Oh, United States. Come on now. Do we have to tell you we have to teach you everything? If you don't like niggers, don't go grabbing none from Africa. You gotta go to Spain, boo. Go somewhere where there's people that, y'all like the what do you call exotic women and stuff. Go where you could love up on the women that's exotic, but white exotic or white like side. Y'all should have went to Asia for your slaves. It would have made more sense because then you really could have Mongolian Indians. That would have made sense. You should have went to China and bought a bunch of slaves here, and then your lie would be the truth. But you didn't do that. You didn't do that because, baby, there was no Mongolians. I was about to say the wrong thing. There was no Mongolians here when you got here. Even Giovanni Verrazzano told you all. He told you. So y'all had to make up lies that don't even make sense. And then when you did bring us here, if you brought us here, why didn't you just cart us back to Africa? Remember when you was all big and bad and you came racing through Africa with chains and whips and just grabbed us up and snatched us up and brought us here and then proceeded to say you don't want us here? You got to make up your mind, baby. What you want to do? So you could have just, like, again, if you took us from there so easy and you say there was millions of us, all of that, you could have took all these millions back like you bought us. Just get them slave ships that you used to have and say, look, we take y'all back home now. And then because you want us to be gone so badly, you could have did something like how during COVID you was giving away free uh coffee, Starbucks, and you could have gave us something like incentive, like what would you like to take on your trip back to Africa? What could we do for you? It would have been so easy. You made it seem so easy to bring us here, but it seemed like it was so difficult to get rid of us. I say you boss up like you did when you snatched us from Africa. But unfortunately, you didn't snatch us from Africa. That's why this lie don't even make no sense. Well, how about this? Next time you tell a lie, make it make sense, and then you won't be stuck looking like Moo the Fool when some Indians realize that you are actually Moo the Fool. Okay, so let's go to the Indians have separate governments of their own. Senator, y'all. This is a senator, y'all. Do Indians like, now this is a real question. When you read something like this, do you find that you get sleepy or you start slurring your words or you feel like you're slipping into a catatonic coma or something? That's the programming, y'all. Because I'm convinced that when Indians read this, it goes in one ear and out the other, and then they just talk about, well, April 15th is past and I didn't do my tax return. Oh Lord. Are you reading what the senators of 1868, I'm sorry, 1866, what they knew about what you was not supposed to be paying? And because you wasn't a citizen and you still shouldn't be, but this government can't do no terroristic acts against you because this is what the freaking Constitution is saying. But they put in a safety guard, y'all. It's called that, the Commerce Clause. But unfortunately, that Commerce Clause is janky as I don't know what, because it's in direct conflict with the first mention of Indians, which mentions us as not part of the United States. We're looking at it. We're supposed to have our own laws. We are separate. We were like say, we would be like Ukraine, I guess. Just a no, I can't even say that, y'all. I can't say. I was trying to look at something where it's a government within a government, but them Ukrainians are Russian, or they were Russian or something. Whereas our situation, we got complete foreigners that was never supposed to be here. In the case of Ukraine, Russia was always there, and Ukraine was like Wasn't it part of Russia or something? The USSR or whatever. I don't know. I'm talking out of turn right now. I don't know, but I'm just saying our situation is it's not actually that because it's not like that because they didn't have the same history we have, of indentures and all of that, So that's not a good example. A better example is we're supposed to be as foreign to the United States as I always say as China is. It's just a separate, completely separate government. Now the issue comes because they are foreigners trying to say that they have a right to be in our country. And that's a mistake. They don't have a right to be here outside of the Catholic Church's doctrine of discovery. So that's where the problem comes in. It's like we Indians, we have to like keep our wits about us because people have become sort of delusional about being here and their right to be here. They forget that this was not really what the Indians wanted. This is not what we as American Indians, this we didn't want this. We all kinds of shenanigans and you know be, betrayal took place for foreigners to call our home their home, you know. Um, but if it's really, really scary because it just makes you wonder like we as American Indians, we don't know a lot. I don't think we really know a lot about the countries outside of, and that's something that America gets accused of. It's like I think the idea is we don't have a sense of the rest of the world. You know, that's something that's said about Americans, I think, because we really don't want to go anywhere. Besides, we want to be home. Unlike a lot of apparently a lot of other countries, uh, and I do think the United States has something to do with people not wanting to be home, you know, because we don't know what they're doing in other people's countries. So it's like this thing that's on the land, it really goes way out of its way to make people want to run to our homeland because that's just how desperate they are to still not have us here. You just never seen anything like this. And then when you see it and realize it's happening to you, it's like, this is really insane. It's like there can't be anything so important when everyone has a place on earth. There can't be like America is got anything that is no some other place doesn't have. Like, it's like every country has something to sustain life. So why is America so important that we American Indians have to be sacrificed just to open up our country to everyone, the whole entire world? Does China do that? Does Russia do that? Who does that? But we have forces here that, you know, this is what they think of day and night. They really have been living under the delusion that we are these sinners, heathen, and that we don't deserve to be. We don't deserve to exist. And it's sad when the sad part is when your life depends on someone being uh, a heathen. See, because it takes away from your life as well. If I wasn't a heathen, what would you do? If I was not seen as a heathen, what would you do in your homeland? So your life depends on me being a heathen, and you think your life has value? It's pitiful. And so that's how a sacrifice system sort of justifies this kind of behavior. Somebody got to die in order for somebody to live. And that's why you don't want a sacrifice system. And I'm talking real, y'all. I know it's almost unconceivable, but when you play this thing out to its end, you will see a sacrifice system perpetuates death, and then it perpetuates somebody needing somebody to die. That's where it gets crazy. So now somebody needs you to be a sacrifice in order for them to take over your country. You have to be a heathen sinner that I can kill. And then my religion makes that okay because I'm doing God's work. I'm getting rid of the sinners. But you told us that we were forgiven and that we were made white as snow. So you lied. Because as of today, the genocide is still going on in some way, shape, fashion, or form. An Indian is being looked at as less than, whether it's something as simple as a day on the rotation with uh, law enforcement, or a day in a court, or a day at a trip to the bank to get a loan, or being followed in a store, or being chosen for a position, or being the poster man or woman for any commercial, almost any commercial. It's like it just becomes a way of life, and it's a sacrifice system. It's a sacrifice system. Someone has to be secondary or in a lower esteem. When you see the connections, you will be dumbfounded. You will see how it all fits together. The religion, the system, commerce, business, politics, sports, music, Hollywood. It's a very massive programming that becomes a way of life. Um, we got more quotes to look at. So I hope you are reading what the senator is saying. I hope it's making sense. The Indians have separate governments of their own. Now, Indians will tell me that we had one government and we had a court. A court. Now, this senator is saying Indians had separate governments. He didn't say we had a republic. He didn't say we had a democracy. Now they are going to loosely uh, apply this to the Iroquois Confederacy. And I had some thoughts about the Iroquois Confederacy and that I want to say. When you think of the Algonquins, they were mostly of the same linguistic. So they were Indians that spoke the same language. They had a kinship. What you're finding, why the government loves the Iroquois, another reason is because the Iroquois are bringing together Indians who don't speak the same language. So that's why they insisting that they had this more, I don't know, this system like a sort of like a democracy or yeah, because they had like the United States, they're trying to bring Indians that are not of the same clanship or whatever. They're bringing in, and the other thing that we have to remember about the Iroquois Confederacy are they were considered one of the most warring confederacies ever. We read that a while ago, and I almost forgot. There was a lot of dissension within the Iroquois Confederacy because they were not all of one accord. Now, Algonquins, again, we had, as Algonquins, we all spoke the same language. So we had that. What you're finding with the five civilized tribes and the Iroquois Confederacy is this a grouping of Indians that do not share the same language. They're not really a family. They're not as close knit in terms of having the same language. I believe that's another reason why this government, they love that kind of dynamic because that's what they want America to be. All of this different people and no real no real solidarity. They need a level of disconnect, you know. But again, the Iroquois Confederacy, as well as the five civilized tribes of the five nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. There's something about this five that they really are into. Um, with the five civilized tribes, the Cherokee, I believe, are the bedrock foundational of these Indians, the Cherokee, because the Cherokee are the only ones who don't speak, you know. So they were, but again, it's a grouping of Indians that don't have the same language. So among the five civilized tribes, it was the Cherokee that did not speak Muskogee. So it's looking to me like the Iroquois gather around themselves Indians of other uh, groupings as if they're one. And somehow they're depending on this disconnect. Why would you want to pit? Why would Cherokee want to be with a group of Muskogeans? What's going on? What is the dynamic here? What are y'all? How are y'all connected? What is it that brings you together? And Cherokee, we saw a map where they were once Algonquin, but that was the same. Again, we say this before. All Indians of the Eastern Woodlands spoke Algonquin because Algonquin is the oldest language. And I just, need to keep saying things to bring it to mind. You know, Algonquin is the oldest language. It's older than Muskogean. It's older than Iroquois. It's older than Siouan. It's older than Tuscaroran. So these Indians are the ones that broke off because of their intermixing with colonizer Moors. And the colonizer Moors just need a few break-offs to go against the larger Indian groups. And they're going to make sure, that basically the word Algonquin is really not known of in Northeast America or Southeast America, the Eastern Woodlands. Those are the uncivilized Indians. The Algonquins represent a majority of Indians, and they are seen as uncivilized because they were not down with just giving away their land to Europeans, okay? Namely Moors. It's the Moors that want our land, and they're just using Caucasians as their pawn to get it, you know? And I know it's hard for Indians to conceive of that. They don't want to believe that Moors are that treacherous, but they are. And it's because they have gone outside of our traditions. They have gone to create foreign deities and that's fine. You could create deities for your offspring, but you can't deny the older deities. You can't deny the ones that we knew, and that's what the Moors do. At the drop of a hat, they don't have any problem doing that because they started out priests, and the priests feel like, look, that our job is creating deities, so we're gonna do what we want to do, and you just supposed to go with what we do. And America might be the first place it is where we said no to our nobility or those who took the role of nobility. We told them no, thank you, sir. They had to go, and that's why American Indians became the most hated thing by the priesthood. They got people thinking that we sinners, y'all. They got the world thinking that. Meanwhile, they're not telling the world what they tried to do to us. And what they tried to do was have us submit to foreign deities that we knew nothing of, and they wanted us to give up the ones that we did know. If that ain't asking for trouble, this was the priesthood that did this. The priesthood basically waged a war on Americans because they were telling you, oh, it's time for you to give up your deities. And here's these ones that look like the newer people. These are your new deities. And we were like, you must be out your damn mind. We were like, Negro, I don't know where you're gonna go, but you got to get your ass out of here. And they had to get to stepping. We wasn't having it, y'all. And ever since then, they've become the most expert deceivers because they have to deceive us, y'all. They've got to come at us sideways. They have to, because if they come at us dead on, they know it's a done deal. They got to come through the side. They just, again, slimy, grimy, dirty. Just they can't sit their fast asses down. They all they know is how to try to come back to us. We don't want you, but that was the decision you made. You don't get to just boss up on everybody. And yet nobody tried to take your life like that. Nobody tried to genocide your ass. And that's why you're in the wrong. Okay, so we went off on a tangent again. We always have to have a little moment of what did we call it? Banging on the beast. Okay, so now Mr. Hendricks. At first, I wasn't vibing with Mr. Hendricks when I first found this article, but I read Mr. Hendricks recently, And I was like, homie is even better than Mr. Trumbull. Listen to what Mr. Hendricks said. He gave it to you straw. Uh straw. He gave it to you raw and straight up. I have sometimes I put words together when I'm sleepy. Um, listen to what Mr. Hendricks said. You probably reading because I'm ranting. I have no desire that the savage Indian shall be declared a citizen of the United States. This is a senator, y'all. Back then, senators knew that they didn't have any jurisdiction over us, but I do think that was their mission to find a way to get jurisdiction over us. So, Mr. Hendricks, oof, Mr. Hendricks was not playing with you. And he gave it to you straight with no chaser. I have no desire that the savage Indian shall be declared a citizen of the United States. I have no desire that any Indian shall be declared a citizen of the United States. Now, what I missed, I was so busy being a little pissed off that he called us savage, but I missed the whole entire point. What Mr. Hendricks just said behind the lines, he don't care if you civilized, naturalized, caramelized, hypnotized, traumatized. Mr. Hendricks don't give a darn. He thinks civilized Indians are just as bad as uncivilized. If you read what the way he's saying what he's saying, first you got to catch it. He said he don't want savage Indians. Okay, so you figure, okay, so that means he only wants civilized Indians. But then in his next sentence, that's when he rips it out on you. I have no desire that any Indian, baby, you a man of faith. You are, what do they call it? You have, what do you call it? Integrity. This is a man of integrity to the nitty gritty. Okay. He ain't playing with you. He don't want, he says, y'all playing with these savages. I don't want near one of them as a citizen. And baby, I don't want to be one. So you and me's on the same page. We like a Ku Klux Klan member and a whole African slave become friends, right? Because we got an understanding. Yes, we do, sir. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I'm with you, sir. We this is the kind of dude we become the best of friends. Now it's not because he kicked my ass; it's because he told me straight up with no chaser. That's why. Because we both want the same thing. I want American Indians to stay American Indians. He wants only white people to be citizens. And I ain't mad at him, yo, because that's how it was supposed to be. That's why when Indians come and be talking about we built this system, I just can't hear it. It doesn't make sense to me. Y'all got to look at what Mr. Hendricks said, a senator. Now, if y'all built this system, Mr. Hendricks was one of the first people that got up in it. Well, excuse me. Um, and his understanding is that it was not a government for anybody with dark skin. He didn't want no citizens, no Indian citizens. We read that it was for white men, right? I mean, we could argue that the Moors are going to say, but we white by status. Yeah, that's why your system is so devious. Okay, multi-meaning words and shit. Y'all, it's like you rely on deception. That's how we know you funky and foul, because you wouldn't need to rely on deception so much, because you wouldn't be seeking to deceive so much. But Mr. Hendricks, I take my hat off. No, I'm not going to take my feather off. I take my hat. I have no desire that the savage Indian shall be declared a citizen of the United States. I have no desire that any Indian, savage or not, be declared a citizen of the United States. I do not think he is now, and I do not think we ought to make him such. See, I want Indians to see that this government that we have, it was never built for us. So why would we build it? Why would we build a system for foreigners to come here and say what this man just said? See, Indians are going to try to say, "Well, the white man took us over." No, he is. This is not just something taken over. He's letting you know it was never for Indians. That's why I don't know. I don't. I, that's when Indians are going to say we the British, and that's when I'm going to say I can't with you. I can't with you. I feel like I have a better understanding when a white person breaks it down when I hear an Indian try to say that we built this system. I just don't get it, y'all. I just don't get it because I don't know of any other country that builds a separate system for its foreign guests. I've never heard of such. I've never heard of such, but Indians are saying that there are some new breed of foolish and that they actually built a system, especially for foreigners, and to the point that a foreigner could say this, and I believe this man. He's a senator. He knows something about the building of this country. He knows it was built by foreigners. But Indians want to try and say that we are the foreigners. And I'm saying, get thee behind me, because you're acting like Satan. You under the more satanic spell. You under an ancient Iroquois voodoo spell, y'all. We can't be the colonized and the colonizer at the same time. But that's what Indians, that's how what we're reverting to now because they refuse to give up this system. They want to keep the religion of their colonizer. They want to keep the legal system of the colonizer. It's like you can't see past colonizer. I don't understand. Do you want a different do you want a new start in life? Do you want the same old crap? Because as it stands, this system is so used to having, white leadership that the white people in this country would go nuts. So if now, okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The decision is an American Indian, is it that it's about getting rid of other races, or is it about Indians being in charge of America? Which one is more important? That I think that's a question, perhaps. Um, because as long as Indians are running it it may not be a big issue of the races that are here so much. But if the system itself was created for foreigners, that's and it was because if you read the Constitution, they're not really talking about Americans, right? They mention free persons and Indians. Excuse me. They're not really talking about any nationalities or anything, right? And Indian is a misnomer. It is, but as another YouTuber explained, a YouTuber that I listen to, um, the Indian is the only one that actually has um how do I say it? Like more of a mention as a living thing, you know? A person could be a corporation. So when you say free persons, that could be a living being or a corporation. But when you say Indian, you are bringing now you're tying that to a living uh, thing exclusively. But I'm starting to think though that a lot of the terms in the Constitution, if it's not saying men and women, it might be that all of those terms are just creations of Great Britain, right? Um, oh boy, but that would let's not go there right now. Okay, that's a long conversation in and of itself. But let's get back to Mr. Hendricks, who has no desire that the savage Indian shall be declared a citizen of the United States. I have no desire that any Indian shall be declared a citizen of the United States. I do not think he is now, and I do not think we ought to make him such. The clause of the Constitution, which Senator Trumbull referred, this is where he tears it up again, has nothing to do with the question of citizenship. At first, I didn't understand Mr. Hendrick. He went over my head. But now he's just on all cylinders here because what he's saying is Mr. Trumbull thought that he should add the Indians not taxed to the 14th Amendment clause, but because of, I forgot why, but Mr. Hendricks is saying, but Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 is not about citizenship. He says, therefore, he cannot use it to rely on. He's saying Mr. Trumbull got it wrong. And when he, at first, I didn't know what he was talking about. But then I said, oh shit, he just blew up my Mr. Trumbull. I was liking Mr. Trumbull, but Mr. Hendricks is talking the real deal. He said Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 is a question of taxation and representation. It doesn't say anything about citizen. So Mr. Hendricks explained to me why I thought Indians shouldn't be mentioned in the 14th Amendment at all. He gave me the answer. He said, because when we talk about Indians in Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, it's not a conversation about citizenship because they're not citizens. It's a conversation of, are they represented in government and are they to pay taxes? And then the answer for both is a big fat no. Mr. Hendricks was way on point. He was so on point that I missed it every time I read it until now, until just like the last two videos I did, I realized it. He came shining through. And he called Mr. Trumbull's bluff. At first, I love what Trumbull was saying. Like, let's look back at what Mr. Trumbull was saying. Indians have a separate government of their own. They do not recognize nor are they made subject to the laws of the United States. They make and administer their own laws. They are not counted in our population, and they're not represented in our government of the United in the Constitution of the United States in determining who shall be represented. And he even quotes Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. So then why are you mentioning them in a conversation about citizenship when you know, Mr. Trumbull, that they're not citizens? They're not going to pay taxes anyway, right? So you don't have to reiterate see, that's when I thought to myself, they just want to associate us with 14th Amendment citizens. They don't have to do anything. They just have to mention us there. And then the mind programming psyop machine will do the rest. You see what I'm saying? Mr. Trumbull, what he behind all of his show, because you know the Congress does acts, right? It's like a play, right? But behind his show, he well, let's look at Mr. Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks is reading the hell out of Mr. Trumbull. Mr. Hendricks, first of all, is very clear. I don't want Indians in this. I don't think they are in it now. And he's telling Mr. Trumbull, when you speak of Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, it has nothing to do with the question of citizenship. I love Mr. Hendricks right now. Let's look again at the 1787 Constitution. What Mr. Hendricks is saying, now this is Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Let's read it one more time for Mr. Hendricks. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within this union, according to the respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to a service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed. So that means the government, all it really knows about us is that we're not taxed. Okay? It didn't say that we're citizens because it's understood that because we don't have representatives in Congress and we're not counted in the number, we're not like citizens. We're not citizens. So when Mr. Trumbull, okay, that's the other place where, here we read again. This was the Constitutional Rights Foundation, where they tell us, thus, American Indians were not considered citizens. They broke it down even more. So that's why what Mr. Hendricks said is, it's like he really called out the bluff of Mr. Trumbull. He's saying the clause that we just read in the Constitution, which the Senator Trumbull is referring to, has nothing to do with the question of citizenship. And therefore, he cannot use it to rely on. It is a question of taxation and representation. They're already not citizens. So that's not the question. The question was, do you tax people who are not citizens? Especially when they're not represented, because that would be taxation without representation. So Mr. Hendricks just called Mr. Trumbull's bluff. What the basis shall be. So it's taxation and representation is what the basis shall be. My objection is to his proposition of making property a test of citizenship. So somewhere Mr. Trumbull, I think what I recall was that Mr. Trumbull felt that if you were living on land that was in a state, that just owning property made you a citizen, or just, just being on that, in that state. But see, that's arguable because for the Indian, it's not a state. It's his ancestral land. So Mr. Trumbull is wrong to think that because an Indian has property in a state, that means he should be a citizen. He is incorrect. Now, what I might say is this, even though I'm more on board with Mr. Hendricks, what I might say is this. If you have an Indian living in the middle of a state and he's not part of a tribe, what you're basically having is a man, a single family that doesn't have any legal framework around him. He's like on an island by himself, which I'm just saying, hey, it might not be such a bad idea for Indians these days to just be left alone on a little island. But it does, what comes up for that person is, well, how do I function in this state if I don't have any of the credentials? And I have the answer for you. Don't worry about it. Here's what I'm going to say. That's when the federal government is supposed to make a way. You hear me? In other words, just because I don't have a government around me because I'm a single Indian living in a state, it doesn't mean that all you do is grab me in the state federal government. What you're supposed to do is let all your people know in this state, leave him alone. When he comes, if he don't have an ID, it's okay. He's an Indian. Maybe he'll have his own ID. But he doesn't have to have our paperwork. When he's driving in his car, he is not to be stopped by. See, there's a way to do it, y'all. They this is what's so upsetting. This is what's so upsetting. They rather dominate us than just leave us alone like they're supposed to. They act like, oh, there's no, we can't do that. You there by yourself. We just can't let that fly. Well, then why did you put me in a situation where I'm by myself? You practically dissolved our tribes with the Dawes Act. That's what you did. You broke up tribes. So how are you going to fault me for not having a government around me when you broke up my tribe, federal government? And so now you're going to try to make me just fall into your state. Well, you're going to have to stop doing that. When an Indian shows up, it's going to have to be known that he's an Indian, number one. He's not an African. And number two, he doesn't have to show authorities. When a cop comes to an Indian, all that Indian got to say is, I'm an Indian, not tax, sir. Have a good day. I don't have to show you my ID. You're on my ancestral land. I'm not in your state. Good day, sir. And I still can't believe that brothers don't want this. I still can't believe that brothers would rather give a federal government that hates your guts, evidenced by some police getting away with murder. How could you, brothers, not want this? How could you not want to stand on this? You reading it from a senator. Now, he gave it to us hard with no chaser, but that's how we like it. I have no desire that the savage Indian shall be declared a citizen of the United States. I have no desire that any Indian, I love that part. That means he's letting you know, I'm an equal opportunity hater. You don't have to be savage. You don't have to be civilized. You're still going to be not wanted by me in my white man's government. And when Indians hear that, they say, that's not a white man's government. Well, Amor told us that it is. He said one that Amor brought the white man and the Moor to the table, and they created a government for the Moor and for the white man. Now the Indian has to be saying, well, I'm so glad you two are getting along, but can you do that in your country? I'm glad we could be the element that brought peace between you. I didn't know you were at such war with each other. It looks like you're just two peas in a pod from my view, but you're saying that you brought the white man to the table for all the fighting on the land. Well, who was fighting? Who? Do you mean you were like the referee between Indians and white men more? Because we know for damn sure that you are the one that claims to have even genetically altered yourself into a white man, right? So you're the grand referee now, but you're the one who started two people being sort of at odds with each other. But when you went into your Frankenstein laboratory, and now you're the peacemaker, and you're only bringing peace. Well, you said the government was for you, for the Moor, and for, oh, you calling Indians Moors again. That's another thing you seem to be in error about. You insist that we're Moors, but you're a foreigner and I'm not. I'm not a Moor. And if you stop genociding American Indians because of the doctrine of discovery, you would realize that we don't have to be you, and you are definitely not us. We would not have brought a foreigner here in the first place, according to how it was when you first showed up. You didn't want to take what Chief Powelton was giving you. You thought that wasn't enough. So is that when you brought the white man in? Who knows? Who cares? As long as the truth is coming out, we know that Indians are not Moors. That's the only way we're going to be able to take our birthright back. Because if you try to have Moors on board, they're going to make you foreign because they're foreign. So if you keep loving up on them, boo loving them, and I'm a Moor and a Moor is me, well, you're just making yourself a foreign American Indian. To be in this land, you better claim American Indian only and let the Moor claim Morocco only because his confusion is affecting you. His confusion is rubbing off on you. The Moor thinks that because somewhere in his mind, all Black people were just one big happy family. If we were one big happy family, you wouldn't have done what you did, right, Moore? Because you said you needed to introduce a white man to the equation. If we were all good, why would you do that? You in your book, you said you brought him here to kill off 97% of American Negroes, you called us. So more your card is so played. So played. You need to really honor Allah and go home where Allah came from, where Allah lives. You need to go be with Allah in your part of the world because, as you know, Americas, we were heathen. So we didn't deal with Allah, right? According to how you look at it. So then why would you want to be in a heathen's land? If you truly love your deity, you'd stay home where he originated, where the big cube is, so you could walk around the cube. We don't have that. Oh God, I can't even safely say that now. They probably done built a cube in here somewhere. But the point is this: back in the day, people didn't want to be around heathens. But what we have unique about today's monotheists is that they love being in heathens' land. Well, in your scripture, that kind of wasn't the case, right? So there's something wrong with uh people that condemn other people, but then want to live where they were. I guess they think they're blessing the land, but you have a birthright in your home, right? That's yours. So you can have a much easier time worshiping your deities without the interference of heathen all around you. But that's the interesting thing about the forces that we're dealing with. It, they can't stand you, but they want to be up near you. And even after you convert, you still are lowest in the caste system. Hello, American Indians. You were supposed to graduate. You were the one that were heathen, right? So you should have, like, when they say, the prodigal son in their story, when you became Judeo-Christian, there should have been a celebration, the fatted cow and the gold ring, and you know, you should have been the center of the attention at the party. But you still at the bottom of the barrel, no celebration, no nothing. Do you see that you got sold another nothing burger, American Indians? Do you get that? You're not celebrated. You gave up, quote unquote, being a heathen, and what did you get? COVID. That's for me. That's just says it all, man. That's for me. It just says it all. Um, let's see. So Mr. Hendricks was on the money, and then Mr. Davis said something that I thought was popping. He said, "My position is that this, oh yeah, this is a white man's government." You ain't saying nothing but a word, my brother. You ain't saying nothing but a word, my brother. Mr. Davis says, "My position is this is a white man's government." He's just backing up Mr. Kendricks. They shoot these men honorable. My position is this is a white man's government. It was made so at the beginning. This is a senator, y'all. So now an Indian is going to tell me, oh, he don't know what he talking about. He's a senator in your system that somehow you were not watching if he got in and you're saying that this is our government. He's saying what his forefathers know is that it was made a white man's government from the beginning. The charters, hit me again, my brother. The what? The charters, say it one more time. The charters that were granted by different sovereigns of where now? But who say what now? The charters that were granted by different sovereigns of England? You mean you didn't get that from the Iroquois Confederacy? The charter, I thought they designed your government, but the charters came from somewhere else, though. Yeah, Mr. Davis says the charters that were granted by different sovereigns of England, not America, to the various colonies were granted to white men and included nobody but white men. Oh boy. This is why I can't listen to Indian show. The ones who are insisting that this is our government. It's hard. I can't because of this. Don't get mad at me now. Because this is a senator. This is what senators were told. He's not just he's talking amongst other senators. If he was saying something crazy, I don't think he would be among that group of men. He's reminding them. My position is that this is a white. He's right. Indians didn't have a government until colonizers showed up. Not this government. And it was nothing like this government, evidenced by the Iroquois and Algonquin, and the fact that we are still not honoring Algonquins. For Indians to convince me that this was a government by Indians, you would have to be talking a lot more Algonquin, and you don't. Many of us don't even want to specify Algonquin, so you want to go with like the Iroquois version. But I know for a fact that Algonquins, they lost their presence, whereas the Iroquois did not lose their presence. They didn't lose their presence. Neither did the five civilized tribes. But you won't hear not much about Algonquins. The five civilized tribes are Muscovian and Iroquois. The Iroquois are Iroquois and whoever is part of their confederacy, but they are not Algonquin. When you read about the five nations, you'll find that none of them are Algonquin. I think they're all Iroquois, if I remember correctly, of the Iroquois Confederacy. That's why they call it the Iroquois Confederacy, I would gather. Now, the five civilized tribes, they don't say it's the Iroquois, but the Iroquois Confederacy says it's the Iroquois Confederacy. But although they did say, wait a minute now, because, yeah, they were the most warring. So even though they're called the Iroquois Confederacy, I don't believe that all the nations were Iroquois. So I think I got that wrong. I think the Iroquois and the five civilized tribes are very similar in that they're different linguistic groups of Indians joining together. And I think their joining together is based on them being civilized. So clearly Algonquins are not considered civilized. But the key here to remember is that Algonquins were the first thing Europeans saw. And so they were the first thing that Europeans got rid of. Europeans don't want to deal with firstborns. And these, when I say European, I'm talking about Black Moors. Okay. Let's just be very clear about this because King James was a whole Black man, right? He had the kind of power to start an America, I'm sorry, a United States, not some random white man. King James was known to be Black, although it's still this big mystery. And that shows you right there how Moors work. They don't like to really talk about race when they know that they're coming against American Indians and they're the same race as us. So King James is quoted when asked by one of his subjects to see his face. His answer was he's going to turn around, pull down his breeches, and show you his ass. And so this is a statement, and I talk about it often, that's coming from King James. So what you get come to realize is, first of all, his subjects didn't know what the hell he looked like. Second of all, he didn't want them to know what he looked like. Why would a king have such a vitriolic answer to a question that somebody just want to see his face? What do you got to hide? You're a damn king. It's because you're a Negro king. So was all your family, and so was all the kings before you, and most of them after you. So you can't tell me that this is a white man's doing. You just can't. It just tells me that you're not thinking it through. You're not thinking the whole hierarchy through. It is church, then it is nobility, and everything underneath those two. And they were both Black. Now, over time, they put white people in those seats, but that's just how the Moors do. They are always hiding their hand, right? When it comes to something as critical as this, they have to go underground. So they don't want us to know that it's them because they're too busy. When you have an element that doesn't want you to be American Indian because they're busy telling you about how great your history was in Mali, you should know that that's not an American. You should know that that's a Moor. And you should know that he's trying to make you a foreigner, even if he doesn't realize it, because they're trained to do that. I think they're trained to do it, but they don't realize that that's what they're doing. American Indian has to be on his P's and Q's because that is the Negro that can steal everything from you by constantly telling you that you and he are the same. But we have these senators, they work in the Congress. I think they know a little bit about what Congress was about. They're saying, my position is that this is a white man's government. It was made so at the beginning, the charters were granted by different sovereigns of England. Now, the sovereigns of England were Black. So it's interesting The point is they weren't American Indian. Okay. We know they were black. But I guess this would be one of those men who never saw King James' face because King James said he'd rather show his ass. I don't know why. The color of his, maybe that's what it was because he was a light skinned brother. But maybe he figured if you see my booty, you won't be able to tell that my face, you know. So he wants you to see the color of his ass because he's saying he'll turn around, pull down his britches, and show his ass. Nasty. Anyway, I mean that is such for a man that was seen as so, I don't know, educated. Is are they saying he was? That answer is very base. He's very a debased answer. I'll turn around and pull down my britches and show my ass. Trust me, sir, that is exactly what you did without even pulling down your britches. It's just show us your ass. American Indians. That's what you did. Okay. And the only reason why you don't want to show your face is because American Indians are not supposed to know that it's a Negro that is coming for us. That is the only reason why I could figure out why this man don't want to show his face. Because he's so not the best thing for American Indians. Why is he not the best thing? Because he's dumping a bunch of foreigners here and they get confused with us. And that was meant to be the case. If he wanted to deal with American Indians, y'all, he didn't have to dump anybody here. He could have dealt with us one sovereign, two, he should have dealt with our chiefs and not have any people dumped here. The reason why people were dumped here is because they're going to start confusing us with their Negro peons. And then they're going to dump white people because they're going to be transferring our wealth to the white people. And underground, the white people will be circulating the money to the nobility. It has to be, you know, they're just like a clearinghouse or something. But it's like when you don't want your face seen, you got to get somebody else to collect the payments or have enough, you know, that their contribution to any nobility will be significant, you know. But they're doing this by using the American Indians' land. But anyway, they did not include Indians. They didn't. That's what the Constitution says, excluding Indians, not tax. They did not include Negroes. It is a white population and not a Negro population or an Indian or a mixed population. That is a truth of history. It is a truth of principle. Mr. Davis is not playing. Do we have more? Mr. Doolittle says Indians not taxed were expressly excluded. Thank you, Mr. Doolittle. So Mr. Henderson goes, so were Negroes excluded? Uh, Mr. Doolittle says 2/5 were excluded and 3/5 were counted. And Mr. Doolittle said that. Then Mr. Henderson says, I'm talking about citizenship. Slaves were not citizens at all. Now they are. Mr. Doolittle says, Indians not taxed or excluded because they were not regarded as a portion of the population of the United States. They are subject to the tribes. Now, I wouldn't say we're subject to our tribes. We're just part of our tribes to which they belong, to which we belong. And those tribes are always spoken of in the Constitution as if they were independent nations to some extent existing in our midst, but not constituting a part of our population and with whom we make treaties. we know that the treaties were bogus, right? They just, that was just a show. That was to make it look like they were doing right by Indians, but Indians were not seen as fit to enter into any legal contracts. So what colonizer did was sort of like what he did with the census. He filled it out for you. And if you look at those census records, what may shock you, as it did me when it dawns on you, that it's all in one handwriting. Whoever took the census is doing all the writing. It's not the individuals. It's the census taker. He's doing all the writing, and he's misspelling, he or she misspelling name. If the Indians wrote their own name, they wouldn't misspell it. You'll find so many misspellings, so many erroneous dates. You know, birth dates are slightly off, names are misspelled. And I think they did that. Ooh, I think, you know what? That was done on purpose, y'all. Partly because when you misspell something, it kind of creates a different entity legally. Now, the census record is a legal type of document. So it's a way where they're kind of not breaking the Constitution, you might say, because they can say, well, it's not exactly your name. It's sort of kind of your name legally because it's not spelled right. It could be you. It might not be you. We just need a roughly to kind of resemble you. So we sort of not breaching the contract because we are breaching the contract because the Constitution said you're not to enumerate Indians. So they turned us black. They misspelled our names. They left little things out. So it's almost like they won't be guilty of breaching the Constitution. But at the same time, they're making it very hard for Indians to look up these records in the future if they're looking to figure out what happened. So that it works two ways. Fumbling the names, it confuses the Indians when they go to look up their genealogy. They really gonna need to get a professional and all of that, spend more money. Everything's about getting us to be without our money. So they were not part of our population. Treaties were like the census records. It really, the colonizers filling it all out. He's making all the terms. He's probably signing it, or putting an X where your name should be, whatever. Mr. Trumbull says, what does the phrase excluding Indians not taxed mean? It is a constitutional term used by the men who made the Constitution itself to designate what? To designate a class of persons who were not part of our population. That is what it means. They are not regarded as part of our people. The term Indians not taxed means Indians not counted in our enumeration of the people of the United States. Mr. Trumbull again. Oh, someone was asking him, not taxed by whom? By federal authority or by state authority? Mr. Trumbull answers, by anybody. Indians are not to be taxed by anybody. Do you see that? That's Mr. Trumbull. The term here is meant to embrace those persons who yet belong to the Indian tribes, foreign governments. Indians not taxed is a term used to designate those Indians belonging to a foreign government and not counted as part of our people. That's where I disagree with him a little bit, because Indians not taxed we read in another document, with a big thanks to another YouTuber, Dr. Tracy. She just pointed me to a document that she thought I should see. And the first thing I saw in the document, now it's called Conditions of Indians Not Taxed, if you want to look it up. It's a census document, but it's a large document, but it's also broken up into pieces. So the part to look for is condition conditions of Indians not taxed and taxed, or something like that. When you read that, it clearly states, now this is a census record, a census document. It says Indians were considered the random Indians who were not part of tribes. It says that. Now, I don't think I have it up in my screenshots, but I will, I think I will try to provide a link to it, and you will see the true meaning of Indians not taxed is not what you see in this document is that they're trying to associate Indians not taxed with tribes. But the truth is, it is the tribes that they are dominating because they are called federally recognized tribes. So they are mixing two different things. An Indian not taxed is not in a tribe. Indian tribes are in tribes and they are regulated in commerce. And the federal government chooses which Indians. They choose what they call federal Indians. So they federalize the Indians. They don't just accept Indians like the Constitution says. They federalize Indians and then they start to make up all kinds of conflicting narratives of Indians being regulated. Is in other words, only Indian tribes are, the ones that the government sees, but the Constitution never explicitly says that they are only federally recognized tribes. So the federal government created a fictitious thing called a federal recognized tribe that the Constitution knows nothing about. What the government was supposed to do was recognize our sovereign standing, like we're seeing all these senators are recognized. So let's read again. The answer Mr. Trumbull has is not taxed. First of all, Mr. Henderson asked, not taxed by whom? Federal authority or state authority? Mr. Trumbull says by anybody. The term here is meant to embrace those persons who yet belong to the Indian tribes. No, that's not true. It was the Indians not taxed, single Indians that were not in tribes. Okay, so that's the only thing we want to correct there. Do we have any more? I think that was the last one that we highlighted. So I think let's see, we did want to look at one more document, but because we're going to look at the document and talk about something different, maybe we should save that for a different video because it's already pretty late. This is probably a long video, but yes, the next document we look at, I thought we would get to it today, but we're going to pass on it because we want to show how they are, again, trying to misinterpret how this regulation clause, this commerce clause is being applied. It's very convoluted, and it's like they're making excuses to why they get to dominate Indians. But when you read it, it's like they're taking domination. Where are they getting that from? They're getting it from the doctrine of discovery. We have to look at that one next time, y'all, because we did go a while here, but I think I established what I was hoping to establish in this article. That's the name of it. Even if we go here, we have it clearly. They're just simplifying it. This is, again, the Constitutional Rights Foundation. If we want to encapsulate, nutshell, what we were doing today, we were reading all the ways that American Indians were not considered citizens of the United States. We looked at this article, we read the Constitution itself, and more importantly, we read senators painstakingly telling us that we are not part of the United States system. So that's what we want to do today, ladies and gentlemen. And I thank you for watching. I think I'm going to close here and say, till next time, be and stay very well. And may you truly reclaim your birthright. Your birthright. That's right. It's getting late, y'all. I'm just slurring my words. But thank goodness I didn't fall asleep like I was doing in some other videos where I just start talking out of my head because I'm so sleepy. Or yeah, or little silent moments where I dozed off. So that didn't happen, luckily. But I thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can like, subscribe, and share. It is very necessary because some of the things we're talking about, of course, it's not going to fly very well, in a system that doesn't, really want American Indians to talk about their sovereignty and to claim it and reclaim it. So if Indians are finding that they agree and they see, it is really important to share with as many people as you can. Please share. Even if you don't get to like or subscribe, try to share as much as you can. And it's just something that will help Indians to see that it is legitimate. When they decide that they've had enough, they can just walk away from this system. And there's nothing the system can do, again, because of our standing. They can't say that we're doing something wrong because it's in the Constitution that we're not. And we saw several comments from senators. Those were senators we were reading, debating about the 14th Amendment, which, according to Mr. Hendricks, they shouldn't have been, because it wasn't a question of citizenship. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. But yeah, this has been eye-opening for me, that document. So again, I will say, I bid you farewell till next time. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, be and stay highly favored.